Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Colleen Williams, and I am a Principal Product Manager on the Edge product group today. I have plenty of my Edge colleagues along with me here. This is an Edge Ask the Expert session. So we are your experts, and we are here to take questions on Edge, WebView 2, PWAs, DevTools, and last but certainly not least, the ending of Internet Explorer 11. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining. You'll see in the chat is our code of conduct, so please take a look at that. You've seen that throughout the week at other sessions as well. This is where we just ask you to be constructive and kind and be a good human to those of us and those around you. So please take a look at that. Hopefully you've had a chance to watch our on-demand videos available on the Build website. Very specifically, Lindsay spoke within Kevin Gallo's keynote session yesterday, talking about PWA, some great goodness there. Lots of great stuff happening around DevTools, WebView 2, and more. So hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at those recordings. Just to also clarify, as we tend to get these questions throughout the Ask the Experts, we're not here to announce anything new. We are not here to review those on-demand recording sessions. We tend to get a bit of feedback of, oh, I was disappointed because I thought you would go through the video that we watched, but that isn't in fact the case. We are here to answer your questions and having Edge in your environment. Developing on Edge, things that you are having questions about, and we can talk about things that are new. So while we wait for questions to come in, I'm going to maybe kick us off here. Rachel, I'm going to ask you some questions on DevTools related. Lots of great announcements regarding DevTools, so I'd love to have you talk about a few of those.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, there were some great sessions on DevTools happening at Build. I think most of those sessions are available on demand. So if there's something you missed or want to rewatch something, I think you should still have access to that. I think a couple of the things that we're really excited about on the team and that we've shared in some of those presentations are kind of our work toward a more modernized and less cluttered user interface for DevTools. DevTools historically, it's a pretty complex tool. It's very powerful, but it can be hard to navigate. So we've got some great information about some upcoming work we have and the way you can try out some new user interface features in DevTools today. We also have talked a little bit about our VS Code extension that brings sort of the power of DevTools in kind of side by side with your code base in VS Code. So you've got some content on that. We had a great technical sort of deep dive session on debugging memory and perf, which I definitely recommend checking out. And I think finally, the other thing we're pretty excited about is kind of our the ways that we're working to sort of better engage with the developer community to get feedback, to hear how can we make DevTools better, how can we make web development better. So we've recently started a new repo on GitHub where folks can kind of have these longer form discussions. Of course, we have things like the feedback tool that you may have used in Edge before, but this is kind of a place just for developers to have that sort of back and forth, longer form conversation and get some insight into like our roadmap and how we think about developing features for developers in DevTools. So I think those are kind of the highlights of what we're talking about at Build.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Sounds like some great work based on feedback provided by developers. So please continue to provide that feedback. We have a couple of new questions coming in. So Aaron, I'm going to kick the first one off over to you. I have developed a PWA for internal use in our organization. Is it possible to deploy PWAs in Edge to certain user groups in a corporate network? And you might, we might tag team this answer a little bit from an enterprise perspective.
Yeah. So I can definitely let you handle the enterprise end of things. But yeah, you can do sort of limited deploys of PWAs. You can even distribute them via your own enterprise store using the store infrastructure. You can have them be a part of your images in terms of pre-installs and that sort of thing as well. So that it basically, the PWA is able to act like just any other app. It just happens to be powered by Edge under the hood. In terms of policy, enterprise policies and stuff like that, I'll kick it over to Colleen for discussing that, as that's above my pay grade.
Thanks so much. We do have group policies in place for quite a few things in the enterprise. I will need to go double check in what is specifically available there for PWAs, but we do have documentation that we can post in the chat that links you directly to our group policies. If someone can go take a look at that and post the link, but that would be the first place to start if we have. There's over 300 group policies, so I apologize I don't have them all memorized as to which ones are available. So please go ahead and take a look. Eric, thank you so much for posting that there. All right, this one also might be a dual action answer here. So Lemon, I'm going to start with you, but might also need some help from Steve. So we currently use web browser control in our app in a lockdown kiosk mode like LTSC environment. Some of the problems we encounter are trying to control breakouts of the environment. Will WebView 2 offer some control over kiosk mode related restrictions?
Thanks, Elaine. This is a great question. On the WebView 2 end, I don't think we have very specifically looked at kiosk mode before, but we do have a lot of features to help developers to make sure your app is really contained in your app and your user doesn't accidentally go out of the app. For example, we have features such as restricting users' navigations options, make sure there's no random pop-ups and stuff like that. And one of the main issues of kiosk mode before is the lack of UWP support. And I think this build, we just announced that WebView 2 for UWP is going to come out pretty soon. So definitely give it a try. And we do have a GitHub issue open, I believe, about kiosk mode. And if you have any questions and if you have anything that is not working for you, happy to collaborate and work on this together.
Thanks, Eric. I'm going to ask you to kind of pipe in here. You posted a link to your blog post. We provide links to Eric's blog post quite regularly, and I would encourage people to continue to look at that. Lots of great information available there. If you wanted to maybe discuss your answer a little bit, Eric.
Sure. So basically, the WebView 2 control does provide callbacks for a bunch of the navigation. So as Lemon pointed out, you do have control over the navigations. And for instance, one of the most common things that people will try to do to break out of a kiosk is to navigate to the local file system. And so they'll, go to C:/C and then get access to local resources on the disk, which could include, for instance, executables and things like that. A lot of the vectors that are normally used to abuse kiosks are not actually present in the WebView 2 control. And so things around handling of downloads, the WebView 2 has the ability for you to control how downloads work and things like that. And so there's a bunch of functionality within the WebView. In fact, we actually sometimes go the other way for people who complain that kiosk mode isn't tight enough. We say, hey, why don't you just build an application atop WebView 2, and that's going to give you even more control over the behavior. And then to the point alluded to previously, if there are policies and other features on the system to further lock down access, so if you're using assigned access to point only to your application, you're going to allow Windows to help enforce security restrictions on that device that will, help ensure that some of the breakouts that would otherwise be possible are not possible because the OS is helping.
Thanks so much. Lemon, I'm going to stick with you here. Is there a future plan for WebView, and I assume the question is about WebView 2, to support overlaying of WPF UI elements on top of and within WebView 2 grid?
So I believe you're referring to the classic airspace problem for WebViews and .NET controls. And the answer to that is yes, we are definitely looking into providing a better support to avoid the airspace issues. This is actually being currently investigated.
Excellent, thank you. While we wait for some more questions to come in, Aaron, I want to ask you some stuff about PWAs and you know, some great announcements that we had in the recordings yesterday, and let you kind of talk about that favorite topic of ours.
Just generally about PWAs.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll speak from sort of my perspective. I think one of the things that I'm most excited about, and we haven't released a ton of detail yet, but we're starting to explore what a world might look like where PWAs can actually participate in things like the widget dashboard in Windows 11, which is very exciting. It's something that I've been personally passionate about for, gosh, the last 3-4 years. And we're starting to do some explorations there. We have an explainer for the approach that we're working on right now that's up on the MS Edge Explainers website. We'll drop a link to in the chat in a moment. And you know, that looks really cool because it's going to allow PWAs to, again, be more tied into the operating system, very much like they are in terms of the share charm, with being able to share from a PWA as well as being able to share to a PWA. We've also got additional integrations where we're allowing you to redirect links into your PWA if you want to be able to kind of control that sort of handling, and just otherwise trying to make it so that PWAs really do sit within the OS just like any other app and aren't seen as something that is somehow different than other app development methodologies.
Thanks so much. I do see a question in here that's generally asking about Edge over Chrome, and you know, the popularity that Chrome is with developers and end users, and you know, what does Edge have to offer. So you know, Edge is built on top of Chromium, so everything that works in Chrome should absolutely work in Edge. All of Google services work very well in Edge, no problems there. Edge is more secure than Google Chrome on Win 10 and Win 11 devices. We have a link to further information on that. So that's a very big question, and you know, one of which we could spend hours arguing and talking about point by point, and bringing you to our docs pages and blog posts. If there's something specifically that you'd like to understand about Chrome versus Edge in a very specific region or area, then please go ahead and post that in there. But you know, we've got vertical tabs, shopping, collections. You know, we've taken, you know, the Chromium web platform based upon feedback from literally everybody when we initially announced this in December of 2018, and adding productivity features. From an enterprise perspective, we have IE mode, native security controls not available without extensions, and so obviously already built there within Edge. Productivity of Microsoft Search and Bing, enterprise new tab page. We've got privacy, tracking prevention. So you can see the laundry list that I can go through here, but lots of things to offer up there. DevTools, you know, with VS Code, our DevTools, I think, has gone above and beyond what other browsers have to offer. So just a small list there for you to ponder, but hopefully that helps answer some questions. They're moving on to the next question. When I click into there, it just takes a minute to launch. All right, so our application launches an IE browser that currently keeps track of via its process handle to know when the browser window has been closed, so we can shut down our application's process. Is there a way to detect a specific Edge browser tab in a similar way? Eric, or yeah, there we go. Thanks, Eric.
I don't have my little live indicator yet.
I think you're on.
So there are a couple of ways approaching this task. The way that Internet Explorer allowed you to do things was a little bit bananas over the years and took a ton of effort to actually maintain. It got even more complicated when we did things like introducing tabs in IE and trying to pretend like to other applications we weren't a tab browser, but still be a tab browser. So within Edge, I can think of probably two ways in which you can do this. One is through the DevTools protocol, basically you have the ability to drive automated instances of the browser. And so if you've got a scenario around doing like web page testing and things like that, using the CDP API to drive the browser is one approach that you could use. But more generally, for a broader scenario where you're not doing web testing or things like that, and you just want to have your tool understand what tabs are open in Edge, the UI automation interfaces that are commonly used for accessibility are an approach here. And so you can basically enumerate all of the tabs that are available in the browser instances and gain some basic information about them. This is an area of ongoing interest for the team. We know that a lot of legacy applications in particular have very deep integrations with Internet Explorer and its COM-based APIs. And so we're trying to sort of understand which of these scenarios are not met by the tools that are available now. And then, most broadly, getting back to the point that was made earlier about the flexibility of WebView 2, you might just want to integrate a WebView 2 into your application. And so that may be the best approach for certain scenarios.
Thanks, Eric. Just as a reminder, well, you may or may not know this, but there's a bit of a delay when people ask questions and that show up in our queue. And so we will try to get to everybody's questions. So thanks for your patience. The next question is on the Microsoft Docs page, the Learn path for Write Your Own Windows 10 application uses Visual Studio 2017, and the request is to help upgrade that topic. Is there a link perhaps that you could provide to the person who asked this question to the docs page that you were asking about specifically? That would be super helpful so we can take a look and see if things need to be upgraded. Another good time to remind folks, docs are actually open source. I don't know if you're aware of that, but anything on docs.microsoft.com is open source. If you log in and click the edit button, you can log in with your GitHub account and post recommendation, clarification, correction to anything you see in the docs. What that does is it creates a PR over to the owners of the docs so we can review and then approve. But docs, it's a challenging thing, and not every team has a team of people to own their docs websites. There's those of us on the Edge team, there's really just a couple of us. And so it takes a village is what I like to say about docs. So if you see something that is incorrect or perhaps could be better stated, please go ahead and help us out there and go ahead and file a PR, and we'll go ahead and review. So thanks so much. And Eric, just as a reply, thank you for your response on launching the Edge tab browser question that you were answering there. Looks like that answered the person's question, so thank you. Livin, I'm going to kick things over to you. WebView 2, everyone's favorite new browser control. So anything new you'd like to talk about there for things? And just as I asked you to talk about WebView 2, there is a question that has just come in. So go ahead and ask the question. With WebView 2, is there any plan to support M6 packaging and or UAP installs? I'm working with Blazor, for example.
Yeah, this is distributing WebView 2 apps is actually one of the more constant theme within our area. So in terms of MSIX support, I believe the MSIX team so far has already published a way to install WebView 2 as a dependency via the app install technology that is available for MSIX. But beyond that, generally speaking, on the Edge side of things, we're also working on getting WebView 2 pushed out to a lot of existing users that already have Edge on their devices, so that you would have most of the end user that have the Edge browser have the WebView 2 runtime already, so that it's easier for applications to just be up and running on those devices. I do want to also point out that on Windows 11 and forward, all of the Windows devices all have the WebView 2 runtime baked in as part of their operating system.
Thank you. And while we're still on you, is there anything you'd like to point out for that was announced this week, or any WebView 2 conversations you'd like to have?
Yeah, so I believe we talked about it a little bit in the build talk yesterday, but it's been a great year for WebView 2. One of the major places and investment we've looked at in the past is really making sure WebView 2 is available for as many devices or as many platforms or as many frameworks that our developers cares about. So recently we've been working on getting WebView 2 ready for WinUI 2 and UWP, and I believe we're going to GA pretty soon, sometime within the summer. If you've been following up, what's up with VS and .NET, I believe .NET also announces the GA of .NET MAUI this build around as well, and WebView 2 will be available as a browser control as part of .NET MAUI. We've also been constantly just releasing new APIs months after months, and there are a lot of good stuff that has happened over the year that I'm not going to iterate. But yeah, I'll also post the release notes for the past year for all of the good work that has happened on the WebView 2 team, so you can check out what's been going on.
Thank you. Our next question here, how does Microsoft suggest we clean up Edge's user data directory, since the browser keeps a lock on the directory until the browser processes have closed? We embed WebView 2 on shared devices, so want to make sure those are cleaned up prior to our application shutting down. I'm going to go with Lemon or Eric here for possible answer. Lemon, thank you so much.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about cleaning up WebView 2 user data folder. Generally speaking, the user data folder is part of the app developer's responsibility. So whenever you start a WebView 2 instances, you as application would specify where do I put my user data folder, and there are programmatic APIs that on Windows that allows developers to clean up those user data folder as you see fit. So for example, if the user is uninstalling the application, you could also just delete the user folder that you specify where we put it, along with the application, to make sure there isn't a lot of leftover data on the user's device. If you're reaching a point where the user data folder has occupied too much disk footprint, you can also use our APIs to clear up the browsing data or just outright delete a user data folder. But obviously, it has some implication on your application because you're deleting cookies and stuff like that.
Thank you. Eric, did you have anything you wanted to add?
So this is kind of a question back to Lemon. Based on the question from the developer, I think the scenario here is that WebView 2, as most applications think of it, as kind of a persistent control, where from app instance to app instance, you're reusing the same data so that you have better performance and things like that. But from their description of a shared PC, I think the idea is they want to make it so they boot the app, the user interacts with the app, and then when the user closes the application, the on-disk tracks from that application are cleared out. So rather than an uninstall case, they just want to start fresh every single time they start the app. And it sounds like the reason they can't just delete the profile folder at runtime is because the WebView 2 objects remain alive and keep locks and handles on that. And so I guess the question would be, is that a supported scenario? Is there a way to shut down the WebView 2 instances? Or do they have to do some kind of thing where like the application exits and kicks off a different application that goes and scavenges the caches?
Yeah, thanks for clarification, Eric. So there's actually two supported ways for you to do this. If the way you want to achieve is essentially start afresh every single time you launch a new app instances. The one thing you could do is essentially when your previous instance closes, just watch for when the browser process exits, and at that point of time, you can either use our you can just delete the user data folder, or actually at any point in time, you can always just call our API to clean out the browsing data that is already part of your app to make sure the user start afresh. Another way to look at this is we recently, I need to double check whether this is experimental or this is already a stable API. But we have been working on allowing developers to leverage the in-private support from Edge. So you can actually launch WebView 2 in private mode, which means every single time for every new instances, the browsing cache, the cookies and stuff, they don't persist. So the next time you start a new in private session with WebView 2, you get what you want, which is a fresh environment.
Thank you. I do have a question that came in. Why do we need an extension to customize the new tab page? For example, for setting it to wikipedia.de, the default news page disrupts my flow. At work, I think employees should stay focused on their task. There is a way to customize the new tab page in the M365 Admin Center. I'm not familiar that you need an extension. Eric, you want to follow up there?
Sure. Waiting for the little live indicator. Yeah, so there is actually a distinction for managed machines versus unmanaged machines. And so in particular, through group policy on a managed device, you do have the ability to customize the new tab page using policy. For an unmanaged device, group policy is not available, and you do indeed install an extension to change your new tab page for something else. The key thing to understand about the new tab page is it's a surface that's been abused a lot by adware and other sort of grayware software that gets installed on PCs. And because your attention is so valuable, it's very common to have packages that will basically do things like you install a third-party PDF reader, and in the background, it goes and changes your new tab page to something that it wasn't previously. And as a consequence of that, users, may not know how to fix the problem, may get annoyed about it. And so the decision was made for the end user experience for a non-managed machine to keep that in the extension system. And the advantage there is we have the ability to do things like nuke malicious extensions from Orbit. As well as to change it back, you can just uninstall the extension. It appears in your extensions list and things like that. So for your scenario about an employee at work, the IT admin can adjust the new tab page to the page of their choice. And if you're an end user, you can use an extension to control your new tab page and set it to the value that's provided by that extension. And so it's a manageability thing for end users. But the space in which this problem occurs is really grayware is why we can't have nice things, frankly. The abuse by third parties has been endemic to this space for more than 10 years. And so that's why that works that way.
Thanks, Eric. The person who asked the question, yes, I made an assumption that you were in a managed device environment. As you say, at work, I think employees should stay focused at their tasks. So if it is a managed device, then feel free to follow up with your IT admins, or maybe you are the IT admin. So like I said, group policies and the M365 Admin Center here is your friend. We have just a couple of minutes left, 2 minutes to be exact. So please go ahead and get your final questions in. I will take this time to make sure to remind everybody, June 15th is when IE11 will be retired. And hopefully you are all done with needing IE. From a developer point of view, from an enterprise point of view, IE mode is your path forward in needing any backwards compatibility for whatever reasons for Edge. So that is your path there. If you are having problems, Aperture is there to help you. I think there's a link that will be published, but since I know it off my head, aka.ms/Aperture. And they can help you with any lingering issues that you are finding in getting IE mode set up in your environment. All right, 1 more minute left. I think we've covered all of the great important things here. Lots of links posted in the chat available to you for follow-up, including the group policies, Eric's blog post that explains in detail all of the information that can get pretty detail oriented there. And we have our evals, build evals. So this is really important to us. We want to make sure we understand you know, how we're doing here. Last question that popped in, LTSC devices are supported for 10 years. Will we be in trouble with web browser control? So the WebOC is out of scope for the IE EOL announcement, as well as LTSC devices. We have information ak.ms/iemode FAQ that has down at the bottom there the in scope and out of scope and for the announcement. I don't know if we have time for one more question. If we do not get to your questions, you can post them in Tech Community. A link will be provided, and we can go ahead and get set up there. So I think we are at time. I appreciate everyone and sending your questions over. WebView 2, DevTools, PWAs. Lots of great announcements this week, so appreciate everyone's attention, and hopefully you have a great rest of build and a great rest of the week. Thank you.